Welcome, everybody. We're glad you guys could all join us tonight. My name is Laura Craver Rogers. I am the Education and Outreach Supervisor for MDIFW. Everybody here tonight is somebody who has won an adaptive for a moose permit. So congratulations, everybody. That's very exciting. And we are all here tonight to make sure you understand what that means and the information that you need to know. Throughout this evening's meeting, if you have questions, please use the chat window to go ahead and write in any questions that you might have, anything you're looking for more information on. This is an excellent opportunity. We have some very talented and knowledgeable people here with us tonight. Joining us tonight is Lee Kantar, our moose biologist, and Kevin Pelkey, one of our game wardens. And they're going to give us some information this evening, kind of help you out, make sure you know what you're doing. And if anybody needs, I know some people were asking, there is a closed caption option on Zoom. You can just go ahead over your Zoom window. You'll see it says CC in a little box at the bottom. You can click that and it will auto generate some closed captions. So if anyone's helping somebody out, please make sure you click that so they can read along with us. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Lee.
Hey, good evening, everybody. As Laura said, if you guys are tuning in to listen to this briefing and ask questions, it's because you were one of the lucky ones who got a moose permit. And the adaptive moose hunt's a little bit different than our traditional hunt, but it's still a Maine moose hunt. It's still a great opportunity in one of the more remote and wild parts of the state, or somewhat wild, I guess. But we just want to make sure with this new hunt and the number of hunters that are going to be out there that everybody really understands, up front what the expectations are as we go along. So it's not a huge deal, but there's a couple of new things here. So we're going to jump right into it and talk about this adaptive moose hunt. And really all the information that we're going to talk about tonight, you already have or should have gotten with that adaptive hunt packet. We have links to the website, which has all this information as well. So all that stuff is there. You can always reach out to us anytime for further explanations, and then we can answer some questions tonight as well. At the end of this presentation, there's going to be a link for basically 9 questions that people are required to answer and send in order to receive your permit. Now, when you look at my presentation tonight, you'll notice that I'm going to have some numbers thrown up here. And if I did my job right, I can't guarantee it, I should have the numbers 1 through 9, which correspond with the questions that are being asked. So, we're not trying to fool anybody or make this confusing or complicated. We want you to know all of the answers. They're all in the adaptive moose packet. They're all here tonight. We just want to make sure everybody understands what we're doing. So, first of all, the purpose and goal of this moose hunt is really to look at reducing the number of moose, to reduce the moose density in a portion of Management District 4, which we're calling 4A, which is this whole western side of District 4. And we're going to throw some maps up and make sure you all understand the boundaries of this 4A unit. But we're putting a full court press on this because we have 550 cow or calf permits, and we'll talk more about that. But this is the hope that over the next several years, we'll be able to push down the moose numbers, which are very high, and hopefully show that we can reduce the number of winter ticks that are on these moose. And when you bring your moose into the check stations, and we'll talk about that too, we'll be looking at winter ticks on those moose as well, right in front of you, and can show you that as well. So we want to reduce moose density in the area. We want to see if that helps us reduce the winter tick numbers. And we hope that if we can reduce winter tick numbers, we're going to be able to reduce the number of moose mortalities we get every year, especially in young moose, calves trying to make it through their first year, that die because of these heavy winter tick infestations on them, okay? So those are the 3 important things that why we're going to conduct this so-called adaptive hunt. And so we realize that the general public, so not just moose hunters, not just other hunters, but everybody in the state of Maine, people are aware of the winter tick, but will something like this adaptive hunt work? Will it reduce tick numbers or not? And that's the scientific part of what we're doing here. And so we want to demonstrate, using you guys as moose hunters, we want to demonstrate that we can reduce the moose numbers and see if that breaks the tick cycle. And it may or may not. So over the course of these next 5 years, we'll be able to look at that and see if that happens. But we need to do this as a demonstration to show the greater public in Maine whether this is something that's feasible or not, since it's really the only known way from a management perspective to deal with this winter tick problem that we have. And the other part that I have on the slideshow is that, we don't want to wait, another year or two or more to try to do this kind of work. We need to do this now. And one may argue that we should have done this long ago, but it takes a lot of resources and a lot of agreement across a lot of different interests to get these things up and rolling. All right, so antlerless moose hunting, as you all know, in Maine, we call it an antlerless moose permit, which means you can shoot an adult cow or you can shoot a calf. Many people think of it as a cow hunt, but let's not forget that calves are fair game and really something that we want you all to think very hard of taking if you have the opportunity. You can't manage moose by hunting a bull moose alone. That's not a winning combination. And given the fact that winter tick is such a driving factor in our moose population, we can't deal with moose densities. We can't deal with too many tick numbers by just shooting bulls. We need to harvest more adult cows and or calves to reduce the moose population. And so that's going to be another one of your questions. You can't do this by bull only hunting. Okay. This hunt itself is going to be a different type of hunt. And many of you who are watching tonight have been on moose hunts. Maybe some of you have not. There's going to be a whole range of people's skills and knowledge when it comes to moose hunting. But this is not a September bull hunt. This is not going to be calling moose. This is very much like a deer hunt. And so it's going to be very important for everybody out there listening that they're going to key in on fresh moose sign, especially cow-calf sign. This is going to involve stalking like you would a deer hunt, setting up a blind. It's going to be like a deer hunt. And that's the kind of frame of mind people need to go into this hunt. This is going to be a hunt where we're going to have higher hunter densities than we would normally have. Now, we've had hunter densities this high before in the past. We had this during the 2013 hunt. So we've had this many hunters afield before. So we're not concerned about that, except if people decide that they're going to drive roads and try to shoot a moose, it's going to screw up a hunt for somebody else. There's no question about it. And that's why you've all been designated a northern or a southern zone and a hunt week, which is either W1, W2, or W3, followed by either an N for north or an S for south. And that's your hunt zone, and that's the only zone that you can hunt in. And we'll show a map of that as well. So that's important to pay attention to. But we did that in order to disperse hunters in the field. And we're going to talk about how important that is for the actual private landowners who own this land and allow us to go up there and hunt moose. And so we appreciate that, and we want to do good things for them. So look at my slide here, and you'll see that number 3 on this is that, this is a different kind of hunt, higher hunter densities. We're discouraging road hunting. You need to mark out an area on the map that you're really going to focus in on, scout, and look for a really fresh sign during your hunt week. All right, so as far as being a different style, different type of hunt, the other thing that we've talked about, and we did this in our pre-briefing, is that, because this is behind the North Maine Woods checkpoints, your camping, lodging accommodations are going to be different. And probably many of you have already, making contact already and trying to figure out where you're going to camp, because where you camp or where you take lodging or whatever you do, obviously has implications for your travel time to where you're actually going to hunt, right? And we're very lucky because, and we'll talk a bunch more about this, but the folks at North Main Woods and the landowners have opened up many sites for people to camp at, and they've put in additional outhouses or latrines for people. We're going to talk more about that, but it's very important that all of you moose hunters and campers really make sure, and we'll talk more about this, that you keep a clean camp, etc., on behalf of all sportsmen and women and on behalf of the landowners themselves. The other thing you need to know about this side of District 4 is that there are not a lot of main haul roads. So you'll see that, you know, the Golden Road is the border on the southern part. That's obviously a big main haul road right on the edge of District 4 and District 8. And then to the far north, if you're in the northern unit, the Reality Road is your line between District 4 and District 1. But you're not going to be driving those roads hunting moose. You're going to be going down into the belly of the beast a little bit more. And again, there's not a lot of big haul roads. You know, so there could be some issues with traffic, et cetera, that we want to avoid. And that's why scouting and getting out there on foot is going to be really important, so we're not bumping into each other. So remember, it's better to scout than it is to hunt, you know, to road hunt. And there are a lot of secondary and smaller road systems and road systems that you'd have to walk anyways that would be really good to look for moose in. The other part of this hunt is that, you know, we require everybody to bring out the ovaries. This is question number 7, I think. And moose have 2 ovaries. If you bring out one of those ovaries, it doesn't help us. It doesn't do us any good because we can't guess what happened with the other ovary, and it doesn't tell us anything. So you need to bring out 2 ovaries. We got a bunch of color photos. We got color photos in the adaptive moose hunt packet showing a very lovely moose gut pile and how to look at and see the moose uterus and find those ovaries. And then you can take a scissors or a sharp knife and cut those ovaries out, stick them in a little baggie, and bring those to one of the 4 moose check stations that we have remotely in the woods. So speaking of that, and I'm gonna repeat myself a bunch of times on a lot of these things, but there are 4 remote check stations that are going to be operated by staff biologists, and there will be district wardens operating throughout the field during all of these 3 weeks. So there's going to be people out in the field that will be there that can be very helpful to you. But the 4 check stations are, one is going to be up at Clayton Lake, which is right on the Reality Road. And one is going to be at what we call the Thoroughfare, which is near Thoroughfare Brook, which is there's a camp there run by 7 Islands. That's on the Sear Road. And it's just a little ways up from the junction of the Poulin Road. So anybody who wants to go out through John's Bridge and go down through Telos can get their moose checked at the Thoroughfare. There's the 20-mile checkpoint or gate that people would go out. That's within District 8. That's by Subpermittees. So if people are heading down towards Greenville, or if they want to go out via Jackman, you are going to have to go stop at 20 Mile to get your moose checked by us. And lastly, the Caribou checkpoint that's on the Golden Road, right at the foot of Caribou Lake, basically, is another important checkpoint that will be open as well. And if you're going to go out Sias Hill Road to Cacadjo, or if you're going to go out towards Millinocket, that's the check station that you want. Those are the only 4 check stations you can go to. And we will be able to remotely and electronically register your moose. So please bring your hunting license and please bring your moose permit. And we will check your moose there remotely, electronically. We will put a seal on that moose. We will weigh your moose. We'll pull a canine tooth. We'll do a tick count, and we will happily and gladly take your moose ovaries and pickle them for you. So we got a pretty good setup, which has taken a lot of time and effort from our staff to get that rolling. Tentatively right now, we're going to say that those check stations will be open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. in the evening. So please try to plan accordingly when you pull up camp and start to head out of the woods. If you decide you got to head out of the woods at midnight for some emergency, we understand that, but please try to be mindful that it takes a lot to staff these things, basically 6 days a week for 3 weeks. And those are the hours we'd love to meet and greet you at. But those are the only stations that you're going to be able to go to. And we'll have people there ready for you. All right, so the North Main Woods, let's talk a little bit more about this. So this moose hunt is entirely in the North Main Woods behind the checkpoints. So some of you who might have hunted District 4 in years past, there are places in District 4 that you could go to where you don't have to go through the checkpoint. That is not the case with this unit because it's too far to the west. So you will be entering this area either through 20 Mile or through Caribou Checkpoint. Those are the most likely places that you're going to come through. Or you might come through on the Reality Road at 6 Mile. But any way you slice it, you'll be coming into the woods. And one of our questions you got to answer on this quiz is that, yes, you will be paying likely an overnight use fee. I don't think many of you are going to come in for the day, but if you come in for the day, there'll be a day use fee as well. And we just want people to know ahead of time to have that expectation. Those fees at the checkpoint, which you probably know, help pay for the maintenance of all those nice logging roads. And you'll laugh when I say nice, but it's a hell of a lot of road to maintain so that people can access these private roads for recreation. So your money's helping that end. And then campsites that are kept, it costs money to keep up those campsites. All the good work North Main Woods has done to increase the number of outhouses, it all goes toward that. Also keep in mind that when you're hunting this western unit, there are no services basically in there. There is no gas, there is no food, and there is no water except for pond water, lake water, or stream water that you would have to treat, and there's no ice. So we need to make sure that everybody realizes if you go in there, don't plan for a one-day hunt. Plan for the long haul. Make sure you're checking the weather for your hunt to see what's going to happen, and plan accordingly. Make sure whether you got an extra 5 gallons of gas that you bring in with you for your truck, or you got an extra day food for another night out, or enough water for camp for your number of people in your party. Make sure you plan plenty. It's always easier to bring all that extra stuff out or stuff your faces on the last day of the hunt after you shot something. So either way you slice it, that's all going to be good, but you're not going to be able to easily go get additional resources unless you're willing to run back out to Millinocket or run down to Cacadjo or Jackman or Greenville, which is going to be quite a poke to do that driving both ways. So camping is limited. I mentioned this, but this summer, like I said, the landowners have opened up all kinds of country for you to camp at. A lot of those places are going to have signs on it. And remember, these campsites cannot be reserved. So if you're going to be camping in the backcountry within the North Main Woods, you need to have a couple of options. If you say, well, I'm thinking about camping around the Baker Lake area, have a backup plan if you get there and it's full of other hunters. Okay, we don't want to have any conflict out there, but it's first come, first serve. And in North Main Woods, you can't go up there, a month ahead of time and stake out a campsite and leave all your gear there and your horse and your neighbor's dog or whatever. You can't do that. You can't stake that out ahead of time. So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge, but again, North Main Woods has provided plenty of campsites for the number of hunters that are going to be in there for each hunt week. Okay, a little bit about driving main logging roads. Many of you have done this, but listen, safety is number one. And again, these are private roads. Not only do you have the possibility that there are loaded or unloaded logging trucks coming screaming down the woods, but there may be other workers in the woods who travel every day to their job, and they have the right of way because it's a working forest. And it's your job as a moose hunter to get out of their way. And not everybody has a MERS radio or a CB. Not everybody's on them like they should be. But road safety and road hazard is a big, big deal. And a couple of points of advice, and I might ask Kevin if he wants to make any comments about this, but look, if you're on a big logging road and it has a lot of turns on that road and curves, and you decide you see a moose and you want to pull over, you want to be, should I say, damn cautious about where you pull over and have a good line of sight for traffic coming behind you or in front of you so that they can see you or your vehicle if you're pulling off the side of the road. And so this is a hard lesson learned. You don't park your truck on a corner, on a blind corner where a big truck is going to come screaming around and take it out. So please be very mindful of your own personal safety and the safety of others, by minding the traffic and keeping a decent speed. And I'll also mention that if we come to October and it's a dry October, these roads can get a tremendous amount of road dust, and you can drive in these roads and be completely blinded by that dust. And you know what you need to do? You need to pull over and stop your rig, and you need to wait till the dust clears. I've traveled these roads many times where people, they don't care that the dust hasn't settled. They keep flying down through the dust. I don't know how they do it. And you're risking life and limb when you do that. So I don't know, Kevin, do you have any comments about road safety and all?
No, I think you hit it pretty good, Lee. Obviously, dust is a concern. Definitely watch those corners, not only for, like you said, Lee, the vehicle coming around the corner behind you to hit your vehicle, but also keep an eye out. You're responsible for that bullet when you let it go. And if there's a vehicle coming around the corner somewhere and you strike the vehicle, or Lord forbid someone, it's no moose is worth that. So, but you hit it well. I'm good with that.
Yeah. So Kevin's talking about if you were gonna, jump out from your truck on the side of the road and take a shot at a moose. Yeah, that's just a whole nother level of cautionary tale, as well as driving. So, yep, do your due diligence when you're driving those big roads there, and watch out for everybody, depending on the weather conditions. All right, so let's jump into just a little bit about the hunt framework. We're almost halfway through these slides, so I'm just telling you, there's not a ton of slides here, but we again want to make sure we're covering everything. So remember, this is basically a hunt that's slated for 5 years. We're providing 3 additional 6-day cow-calf hunt weeks starting in mid-October. Remember, there's no overlap with bull hunters during this hunt. This is all a cow and a calf hunt, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. That first week, October 18 to 23, you're going to have 200 permits. So there's 100 of you up in the north zone, which is W1N, and then there's 100 of you in the south zone, W1S. The next week is going to be a little bit crazy because it's going to overlap with the cow hunt that extends across districts 1 through 6 and District 8. And there's going to be additional cow hunters who can hunt anywhere in District 4. Not you guys in the adaptive hunt, but there's going to be a few folks that are going to have a cow hunt across the whole unit. This is just the framework that we, Fish and Wildlife, had to deal with. We had limitations to how much we could spread this out. But there's going to be 150 in the adaptive side. So there's only 75 permits in the north zone, 75 in the south, and then this additional 100 permits across the entire unit. So that could be a good thing for some people, but the adaptive hunt people must stay in their designated zone. Okay, and lastly, there's the November 1 to 6 hunt, and that's 200 permits, 100 permits in the north zone and 100 in the south zone. And so you'll be divvied up, and this is going to be, one of the later hunts considering, how far north District 4 is. But as everybody knows, the weather in Maine has gotten crazy, and it could be 75 degrees November 1 through 6, or it could be 25 degrees and a foot of snow. So we're just going to have to see what holds with the weather and plan accordingly. So there's a total of 1,050 permits in the entire District 4 zone, of which 550 are in the adaptive unit, just for your own information. So here we are. Here's the adaptive hunt zone. Again, we divided this unit in half. So the whole adaptive zone is this western side, and it's demarcated by a really good road system. And then the yellow road, which is the St. Aurelie Road, which I'm going to show on the next slide up close, is the road that's going to show you whether you're in the north zone or the south zone. So the entire unit is 2,000 square miles. The west side is approximately 1,000 square miles. And then the north versus south zone, each of those areas that you have your hunt in is basically 500 square miles. It's still a pretty big chunk of real estate. So let's talk about from south to north for all of you out there, right? So you southern moose hunters, of course, as I already mentioned, we know that for everybody, the Quebec border is your clear mark on the west. But for southern moose hunters, the Golden Road is your southern border. And then right here to the east, you would start up the 490 road. Now the 490 road is marked. It's a pretty decent sized road. It's a pretty main thoroughfare for people to travel north. And as you go up that, it's going to split into the Russell Mountain Road. And then it's going to take you up towards Cockmagomic Lake. And eventually it's going to pull you over. And there's a different name for Cockmagomic up here. They call it the Cave Road on a map. But I would encourage everybody, if you don't already have it, to grab a Maine Atlas or Gazetteer. I think the last one was published in 2019, but get the most modern one. Hey, it's 25 bucks or whatever, well spent. But that's going to show you all these roads very clearly. So when you get up, you're going to come up to this big junction. Once you leave that Cockmagomic or Cave Road, you'll have a big junction with the St. Aurelie Road, which is this big western road divide that takes you down past St. Francis Lake, and it takes you past Baker Lake all the way to the Quebec border. That is the north-south line that every adaptive moose hunter needs to know. So for you northern hunters, you'd continue up from that junction with St. Aurelie, and it becomes the St. Just Road. That's a really major road system. You go up that, it becomes the St. Just Connector, and then becomes the Ross Mountain Road and the Maybeck Connector, which takes you up to the Reality Road to the north. Now, people call some of these roads have different names. Some of these junctions are very well marked, with some of them have much smaller signs. So don't be afraid to stop and familiarize yourself with the road system that you're on. And your subpermittee or whoever's with you can make sure that you're in the right place at the right time to make sure you know those road systems. But those are your major roads that are the outline of your moose hunt. Now, if you look at the main atlas, you're going to see that there's, especially in the southern area, one of the guys told me that you see lots of red gates on some of these roads. Now, some of those gates are actually gates that are open, and that some of them will be passable, some of them will not. And you really got to use your good judgment and always keep in mind, a number of things, which is this is somebody else's road, somebody else's land. And is there somebody else that drove up that road to hunt moose? We just got to be very keen and aware about the types of things that are going on and the people that may or may not be ahead of you. So, you check the tire tracks, whatever you need to do. But again, it's all encouraging getting out of the truck, hunting road systems. There are lots and lots of smaller secondary roads that are not shown on any of these maps that you can focus in on. So let's just keep moving it ahead here. Let's just talk a little bit more about the moose hunting itself here, which is, we talked about the north or south hunt weeks, the 3 weeks of hunting, campsite scouting. Remember that a legal moose is an adult cow moose, or it's a male or female calf. Now, there are no antlered moose, and a couple of years ago, the law was changed, and we'll talk a little bit more about this. But, several years ago, we kept running into the fact that during the antlerless hunt, it was legal back then for people to take, a small antlered moose. That is no more the case. There are no antlered moose allowed, but you can take a male calf, and a male calf I'm going to say this on some other slides here, has little nubs on it that unless you're up close, you're not going to be able to see well, but that's a legal animal. And again, we encourage people taking a calf. And I've already mentioned this. If you take an adult cow, you need to collect those ovaries and bring them into the station. One other thing I didn't mention is if you've hunted a moose before, and many of you have, you're going to be asked as well at the check station to mark on a main atlas where your kill site was. So it's not going to hurt, and it's going to help us a lot. And people get very confused when they're asked this question. If you have a GPS unit, take a GPS point of where your gut pile is, where you shot that moose. But do us all a favor, and if you can pinpoint on a map where you shot that moose, that'd be very helpful for us. Okay, so we thank you ahead of time for that. All right, so again, going back, distinguishing bulls, cows, and calves. Again, by law today, an antlerless moose is a moose without antlers. That means your permit allows you to shoot a female moose without antlers. That is an adult cow, a female calf, or a male calf moose without antlers. And there's a question that you're going to have to answer on this. And it's just read it carefully. You can't have antlers. That's all there is to it. A male calf has small bumps that are called pedicels on either side of its ears, and that's a legal male calf. So many of you may know this, many of you do not, but Kevin's going to talk in a minute about some of our enforcement issues that we run into. And a lot of that has to do with identification of a bull versus a cow. And just a little refresher for people, and this is really important, for us when we're doing aerial surveys in the wintertime when a bull loses its antlers. But look, if you look at this picture on the left, one of the things you can see is that there's a cow moose in the background, and she's got a white patch on her butt. That's called a vulva patch. In this picture on the right that's circled is a close-up of the white vulva patch. 99% of the moose that have this white vulva patch are a cow. So if you and your subpermittee are in the woods and you're in thick cover and you're making sure that you have your gun pointed at a moose and you are having some uncertainty of whether it's a cow or not, these are other characteristics to help inform you. They shouldn't be the only one. You need to make absolute certain of your target. But these are some other factors. A cow moose has a uniform brown face like this cow on the right. And her face can be very light in color as she gets older. It can be a little bit darker. Notice this bull on the left. It has a very dark muzzle that fades into brown, which we call a bicolor face. And this has to do with testosterone. So when you're looking at a moose head on and you see this, this is a nice indicator of a bull versus a cow, even if for us in the wintertime when they've lost their antlers, okay? The other big thing about bull versus cows is that all moose have a dewlap or bell under their chin. Bulls tend to have a big bell that as they get older becomes a huge disc or bell shape and will have a rope coming off of it at times. Sometimes there's no rope on it. Cow moose will typically have a small bell or dewlap under their chin, but so do young bull moose. They have a small bell as well. So that's not the only thing to judge by. We really want people to be able to learn and distinguish all of these characteristics to be able to determine bulls versus cows. And by the way, even calves in the fall that are 5 or 6 months old, a female calf will have a white vulva patch and a little bull calf will not. But it doesn't make a difference because both a male and female calf are legal quarry during the antlerless hunt. And just another thing here, and this is a picture, and this is going to lead into our enforcement discussion here, is it's very, very important and very critical during the cow hunt, especially with your subpermittee, that you're identifying the moose that you're going to shoot and that it is only one moose. Now, if you look at this picture on the top of a cow and a calf, This is often the case in the thick woods of Maine, that the calf is traveling behind or right with the cow. So if you were the shooter and you were on the far side of this cow, you could potentially shoot this cow and be shooting 2 moose because you didn't see the fact that this animal had 8 legs. You with me? So this is a very classic scenario where you would never take a shot because this is 2 animals behind it. And I'll let Kevin talk more about that in a second. Notice on the bottom picture here that this is a picture of a moose, and notice there's no vulva patch on the rear end, okay? And that the face of this moose kind of looks like it has a lighter head and a darker muzzle, but I can't see any antlers. I would look at this, and I don't have very good eyes, but I look at that as potentially being a bull moose. So make sure you're able to differentiate these things. Also realize that calves may or may not be in proximity to a cow. It could be feeding 100 yards away. And if you want to shoot a calf, and again, we encourage this, a calf has a very boxy, square look to its body versus a cow that has a much more long and rectangular look to it. And so those are some things to differentiate as well. So let's move on here to some comments about some common law enforcement issues. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin. I'm sorry.
No, I would just want to touch base overall. First of all, I strongly recommend that everyone takes a look at the hunting law book and the moose hunting packet. Review all those laws. You're going to be responsible for them. I just want to touch bases on some issues we see. Just want to remind everybody, we'll start off with the simple things. Hunter orange is required. So during the non-firearm season on deer, 1 article of orange is required for moose hunting. But once firearm season on deer comes around, you need to have 2 articles. As far as the 1 article, it could be either hat or a vest, solid orange hat or a vest. So keep those things in mind. Sometimes you forget them. You're driving around the woods and take your hat off because you're hot or whatever the case may be. Just remember you have the orange on. That is a safety concern. Speaking as Lee spoke to earlier, reference potentially killing 2 moose or something along those lines. One thing that can strongly lead to that as well is the permittee and subpermittee hunting apart. So in the state of Maine, this is the only hunt where you're allowed to have 2 individual shooters that are shooting at the same animal on the same permit. If you're not familiar, the permittee can hunt by himself without the subpermittee, but the subpermittee cannot hunt without the permittee. They have to be accompanied together and have to be in visual and audio communication distance. Not a radio, not binocular, something like that right there and handy. And a lot of problems that you have if you guys start to separate some in the woods, the permittee may be looking at one moose and the subpermittee is looking at another moose, and you guys are thinking you're looking at the same moose, and that's where problems can come along. So I just remind you, I encourage you to stay together, but I also remind you the law requires that you stay together while you're hunting. Careful of loaded firearms in a vehicle, things like that. Again, safety concerns. Taking a look at the list we have here. So back up to E, the double kills and how to avoid them and what to do if it does happen. Patience is key. If you take time, ensure your target. I know Lee talked about the vulva patch and bells and things that you can use to help identify you. But a reasonable and prudent hunter, the statute even says you have to have a clear, unobscured view of the head and torso. Okay, so the information he gave is very reliable to a point. I wouldn't risk to that point. I would use that as a confirming factor, not my only factor. And I do believe Lee said that. So take a look, make sure you've only got one moose there. A lot of times they do travel in packs, and not packs, but in pairs. And there may be one moose in there that you're seeing, and you don't see the other 2 or 3 moose just inside the wood line somewhere because you're so focused on that one moose. Once you fire and moose start to scatter don't shoot a moose again unless you know it's the first moose you shot at. That's where some issues can come into place. If by some chance something does happen and you do inadvertently kill two moose, don't touch anything in the scene. Don't disturb it. Send somebody from the hunting party out. Try to get some cell service or find some contact with some people. Forgive me, my lights just went out in my room, but so just try to make contact with the warden service. Someone will be out there. It could take a while. You guys are in a remote stretch. There will be a lot of warden presence in the area, but they're not on every corner. So it might take a little while to get there, especially if you're hunting in off the road some. So the warden will come in, speak with everybody involved and look the scene over and evaluate it from there. I can tell you right now, if something like that does happen, accidents happen, and we can try to treat things a lot better if you bring them forward and tell us what's going on. I can tell you, I don't know a warden in the state that if you shoot two of them and leave one of them there to rot, if we can find you, we're going to make you pay dearly for it. So just keep that in mind. It's a lot better to just let us know there's an issue and we can address it, and we'll address it as fairly and reasonably as we can. So we have F, antlers. Okay, back to the antlers, no antlers. This is a cow moose only or an antlerless moose hunt. Antlerless means antlerless, no antlers. So if you end up shooting what you believe to be a cow moose, you look it over, before you shoot the moose, you get up to it when it's on the ground and you find it has little stubby antlers just under the ears or behind the ears, and you didn't see them when you shot. Again, leave everything where it is if possible and contact the game warden. They can take it, and evaluate the scene from there. Everything from the location it was at and where you were and all those type things will come into play. So that's why it's best to leave things where they can be, leave it where it is, and let the warden see it where it's possible. But generally speaking, that is an illegal moose. So that's why we want you to bring it to our attention, and we can address it from there as fairly and equitably as we can, given the circumstances. Lee's put out some maps, and I believe you're going to get some maps in your handout. Just make sure you stay within your boundaries. The north zone and south zone, that's where you're assigned to hunt. That's the only place your permit is legal. So make sure you're hunting within those boundaries. Another thing we have on here, H, is blocking roads. This can be a very frustrating and very common issue, unfortunately. Is someone parking, they want to go for a walk down the road and they park their truck and block off a whole road system so nobody drives in behind them. What I can tell you is that's illegal. It's frustrating to other hunters. And if there was ever an emergency and you're down in there and something happens to you, you're also blocking access for first responders to get there to help you. Don't block the roads. You can get yourself in some trouble for that, because we get several complaints on that every year. If you want, you can try to station somebody out the front of the road and be like, hey, there's a hunting party down there, but you have no right to stop them from going down that road or from blocking it. So just keep that in mind. I think I missed D here, hunter listed on multiple permits. So you are only allowed to kill one moose in a year, period. So if you are a subpermittee on two separate hunts, you've got buddy A who's got a moose hunt in September, and then you're coming as a subpermittee to hunt B. As a subpermittee, you're allowed legally to harvest one of those moose. If you're there and everything else is compliant, you're allowed to shoot that moose, kill that moose, and register it. But you're only allowed to kill one moose in a year. So if you are a subpermittee on a September hunt and then one of these 4A hunts, and you kill and register a moose in September, you cannot legally hunt or kill and harvest a moose. Even though you're a subpermittee, you can go along in the hunt. You just can't carry a firearm. You can't actually hunt the moose because you've already killed your moose for the year. So I want to keep that, just bring that to attention. Off the laws themselves, I'm going to reiterate what Lee said. This is a very remote area. Come prepared. Make sure you have fuel, spare tires, some type of communication device, a plan. Let family members know the areas you're going to be in case something does happen. May not be the exact road, but if you got an idea where you're camping, or that way there, even if an emergency happens at home and they call the warden service trying to get a message to you, because they can't contact you. It gives us a place to go looking. If we know that you're staying at campsite X, or that was the plan, and if X wasn't there, you might be at, Y. So just keep those things in mind. It's a remote area, weather changes. Good luck. Congratulations on your moose hunt. And we all wish you the best of luck. As a game warden, I just want you to be successful, legal, ethical, and enjoy yourself. Harvest some moose. Anything else, Lee?
No, I'll, if you're good, I'll go on to the next one.
Yep, I'm good.
So we just got a few more slides here, and this one is about meat care. And this is a critical one as well, because it's a real problem that we have every single year. And even though this hunt is, one of the later hunts, there's no question that it could still get warm. And if you're lucky enough and you have a hunt with daytime temperatures in the 40s and it drops down at night, you are living the dream moose hunt. Absolutely. And hopefully it happens that way. But as soon as it starts to get above 50 degrees, if you kill a moose and you kill a moose back in the woods and you start spending all your time trying to drag that moose out of the woods, it's just not a great way to go. And, last year working up to Fort Kent, we had people taking moose during their moose hunt in September, and it was almost 80 degrees out. It was just horrible. So you got to plan for hot weather. And again, you look at the forecast and you plan ahead, and you make plans on how you're going to handle that moose. And many of you have done moose hunts before, but listen, every year, if you work a check station, we hear this over and over again. Somebody shoots a moose and then gets up to it to field dress it, and they're like, holy mackerel, I can't believe how big it is. And, even a cow moose, live weight, you can have a moose that's 600, 700, 800 pounds live weight. It's a big animal. And then you gotta get that moose out of the wood, and you gotta process that moose in order to preserve the meat. So make lots of plans ahead of time. And of course, we recommend, if it's warm out and starting to get up into the 50s and 60s, you're going to be remote. So, consider a gutless method, or consider quartering your moose. We have lots of information on our website about this. There's lots of things you can Google. We have some professional videos that we've done on how to do this. But listen, if you want, high meat quality, which we all want, and you want to have an ethical hunt and have lots, hundreds of pounds of high quality moose venison in the freezer this winter, hey, why not consider doing this? And, I'll make a comment as well, because, we encourage people to quarter a moose, but we had a new rule or law change this year, which is, even if you part out a moose, you still have to bring out the whole entire head, even with a cow. So make sure you remember that as well. So we do encourage parting out an animal, but you will have to bring out the entire head as well. So if you quarter a moose, remember, you can use game bags to put all the pieces in. I mean, clearly when you've got an animal, fluids, flies, dirt, those are all your enemies. Those are going to spoil things. And again, the woods road that I talked about earlier, if it's dry out there and you throw your moose in the back of a truck and you're heading out, 40, 50, 60 miles, you're going to have dust in every nook and cranny of your gear, including your moose. And so, take some precautions there. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, you guys are going to be in a remote area. If you're in some hot weather, no better way, like you said, than to quarter that moose to allow the heat to start dissipate. Dave Hentosh and Lee have some excellent videos online on how to quarter moose, but a good set of quality game bags. Put those quarters in there, hang them from a tree limb so air can circulate all the way around that, top, bottom, and all the sides. Don't stack them up on top of each other where heat can go in. Little things like that can do a lot to preserve your meat. Just like he's talking about, keep it clean in that game bag, let the air circulate around, let it cool down. Nobody wants to go on a hunt, have a successful hunt, all to have their meat get ruined.
Yeah, and I remember years ago, I'd hear all these debates about whether hide on, hide off. You've heard that debate, Kevin?
Yeah.
And the thing is, when you get really hot weather and it starts to get into the 60s, I mean, there's no question. The inside of a moose is 100 degrees, and that heat's got to escape. And I still don't believe that packing it with a ton of ice, that's going to cool out through the moose into some of the most prime parts of the moose, which is the back straps. So you got these big old shoulder muscles. You got ice stuffed in the cavity, but that ice still has to radiate through. And then you got hide of the moose on the back that's keeping all that heat in that's trying to escape. And, you know, from my perspective, I want to have high quality meat. Hide's got to come off. You quarter the moose after that, put it in game bags, completely protected, never have to worry about it again. I've seen some folks over the last few years, they've done a great job, you know, cutting up their moose, but then they leave the hide on and then they throw it in the back of their pickup truck with the chainsaw oil and everything else. And I don't understand that. That just defeated the purpose of all that work you did to quarter up your moose. You know, you got to treat it like you would when you go to the supermarket. Nobody goes to the market, you know, in order to have a big barbecue this weekend and buys some, you know, some prime cuts of beef. Nobody goes and drags it through the supermarket and then throws it in the back of the pickup truck in 60-degree weather, you know, until Saturday's barbecue. So, you know, it's really an important thing. And I think it's a matter of pride, you know, as a hunter to really get out that high quality meat. All right, so camping in the North Main woods.
Real quick before you get on to that, there's a couple of some good questions about that.
Okay. Yep.
A couple of people had some questions about, so if they are quartering the moose to get it out, they're wondering about, you mentioned doing a tick check. Are they gonna have to, or do you want them to bring a hideout or something so you can do a tick check if they're quartering it?
Nope. I would say from my perspective, and that's a fantastic question. I'm really glad they asked that because, you know, just from my perspective, I would say to that person, you know, based on the temperature and doing the right thing, yeah, preserve the meat. Take care of your meat first, and don't worry about us doing that winter tick check. That is completely fine. Get us the ovaries, you know, and bring out the head, and then bring out all your edible meat. But yeah, don't you worry about the tick count. Yes, thank you for that.
And another question came in a little bit when you were talking about the ovaries. So someone did ask if it was covered about removing the ovaries, and it was, and it is also in your information packet. But there was a little bit of a question about, you mentioned that people could get a male calf. Is there anything they need to do? Because with females, there's the ovaries. Is there anything you want them to do with the males for bringing out any organs or anything like that?
No, there's not. And again, thank you for that question because, yep, sorry.
Lee, if I may.
Yep.
So if the male animal would need its sex organs, its testicles, left attached to the moose. And if you quarter it, they need to be attached to one quarter of that, you know, one of those 4 quarters. So you don't have ovaries to bring out, but there is a sex identifying organ that needs to legally be left attached to that animal. If it's quartered, it has to stay attached to one of the quarters. If it comes out whole, it needs to remain on the carcass. So they don't get the same data out of that obviously Lee does with his ovaries, but it does need to stay attached.
Well, and also, you know, that new rule change this year is such that the head has to come out on all these animals. Right?
Does the head have to come out even with the ovaries? So someone said, if you bring the ovaries out, do you have to bring out the head still?
Yes, you do. So now there's some confusion. So let's clarify this, is that, and this is new to everybody, which is the law change says that for all big game animals, including moose, whether it's a calf or an adult, you have to bring out the entire head. So you'll bring out the edible meat. So let's go through this. With an adult cow, you'll bring out all the edible meat and you'll bring out the ovaries and you'll bring out the cow head. With a male or female calf, okay, you do not need ovaries. So obviously the male calf does not have ovaries, but the female calf, we do not need the ovaries from a female calf. And I hate to say that because in the larger scheme for all moose hunters, we try not to make confusion, but the reality is we don't need ovaries from a calf. But if it's an adult moose, a yearling or older cow, those ovaries need to come out, and the head for all these animals. And the head of a male calf is going to give us the pedicels, which is your beginning growth of the antlers. So that's going to be your proof of sex for a male calf. Kevin's looking at me. But we can make sure we clarify that as well. But yeah, you got to bring out the head.
That was a good clarification. Thank you.
And did you have another question, Laura?
No, but just to
me?
clarify, Kevin was also saying if you get a male, you want to leave genitals attached to 1/4. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Thank you. Oh, and one other thing. Can you bring a chest freezer with a generator?
Yes.
Yeah, if you've got the gas and the time and the ingenuity to do it, you most definitely can. Yep.
I'm just gonna, I hate to be one of those people, but I'm gonna say it. So I had a District 4 moose hunt in 2014, and I have a Tacoma pickup truck, and I brought my small chest freezer in the back. And a week or so prior to the moose hunt, I filled that. I had froze. I'm sorry, I'm not speaking correctly, but I put frozen gallon water jugs in the freezer, and then when I unplugged it, we put the chest freezer in the back of the pickup truck with all the frozen jugs, and that thing kept cold for a long time until we shot our moose and got it in there. So yeah, absolutely, and you can run a little generator, and that's a beautiful setup.
And one last question here about all of these, what needs to come out of the woods. Someone's wondering what is the purpose for bringing out the cow head?
Well, so this law change that happened this year was to make it consistent across all big game animals, meaning bears, moose, and deer. So, back prior to this year, it was not legal to take apart a deer in the woods and bring a deer out in pieces. And the same thing, I believe, with a bear. And so this new law change makes it so that those animals can be parted out, but in order to show evidence of what you shot, the head has to come out as well. So that kind of flipped the situation with moose, because years ago we made a change so that people could part out a moose, and if you shot a bull moose, you could have the antlers attached to the skull plate and pull that out, but not anymore as of 2021. And we'll verify that for everybody as well, because that's brand new. And we just had this legislative session pass and verify all these. So that's why it sounds like we're a little confused here, but that's because this literally, I want to say it was about last week, this new law came out, and we need to reflect that. But yes, the entire head has to come out for any big game animal, and that's a change.
No, that is some good information. I'm glad we can get that out. And so people are saying, well, what if the male's already dropped his antlers, but you can still tell that it was a male looking at its head. Is that correct, Lee?
Oh yeah, you mean if somebody had a bull hunt?
Yeah, and it lost its antlers already, but you have.
Yeah, I mean that's not going to happen during the bull hunt, because it's a September and October bull season. They're going to have their antlers no matter what. Bulls aren't really going to drop antlers till December. Once in a while we get some that drop earlier, but that's going to be a very rare and unique situation where you have a mature or an antlered bull drop its antlers that early, and then somebody shoots it and brings it out. But anyways, the bottom line is the head has to come out with the parted out carcass.
That is some good clarification, I think.
All right, so I'll jump into the camping North Main woods, which we already talked about. We already talked about camping's first come, first serve. And really, just to speed things along, we have all this information in the hunt packet, 3 different types of campsites. There's authorized campsites that have fire rings, picnic tables, and toilets. We have a designated fire permit, it says here, but that should say designated campsite where you need a fire permit. And those have fewer facilities. Some of those may not have a outhouse. And then we have these temporary campsites, which is the new campsites that North Main Woods have just put out just for this moose hunt only, just for the adaptive hunt. So the one big thing I need to tell people is that if you wind up by some chance, and I don't think there's going to be this situation very often, but you wind up camping in a spot that you're allowed to camp in, but there is no campsite, you must dig a hole for your waste. And if you have multiple people in your party, you absolutely need to make sure that you dig a deep hole for burying human waste in an appropriate site. And every time somebody goes, to be quite frank with you, you got to throw some dirt over there. You don't want to attract flies, but you really got to keep a clean campsite. And this is not a big deal, but it's just something that people need to do. If there's a campsite with no no privy, no toilet nearby. You need to make your own. And there's all kinds of things that people can do if they go online and make their own buckets and all these type of things that I'm not going to go into. But, please keep in mind, future moose hunters and camping on private lands and doing good things for everybody and the landowners. All right, so the last slide here, and then we can take more questions, is that at the end of the day, you as moose hunters are really real-time managers, wildlife managers, helping us out to try to deal with this problem that is winter tick. And as part of the assessment of, and this is one of our questions, as part of assessing whether this 5-year hunt works to break the tick cycle, we're going to continue collaring calves in District 4 like we've started doing 2 years ago. So every year we're collaring 70 calves, putting GPS collars on them to look at whether they survive to a year old the following May or not. The information that we're going to collect at harvest from your moose, we're going to get ages from your moose, we're going to get winter tick counts, we're going to get ovaries, and we're going to get carcass weights. These are all very important elements for managing moose and understanding things about their population dynamics, age distribution, and about productivity. So really critical pieces. And we continue to make conducting our aerial surveys, both for abundance and for bull and cow and calf cow ratios. District 4 is our priority. We flew it the last 2 years. We know there's a lot of moose out there. We've flown it firsthand in helicopters, and we'll continue to do that and assess that over the next 5 years. And lastly, we're going to continue to quantify annual reproduction in harvested cows, and we're going to do that with your help. So please bring in those 2 ovaries and help us out there. And that's going to be one of the most critical pieces in this whole adaptive unit hunt. So that's it for the slides. And Laura, we're happy to field any questions there.
Yeah, so I'll just jump right in. But one question that came in based off of some of the things you just said. Someone wants to know what happens if you shoot a collared moose.
That a collared moose is completely legal. We only ask you that now here's the situation, which is if you shoot a moose with a collar on it and you take that moose out whole, just leave the collar on the moose and we will take care of that collar at the check station. Now, if you obviously cut up the moose and you remove the head, then your collar is going to fall off. So you don't need to worry about doing anything with the collar in either of those situations except to pick up the collar and take it to the moose check station, and we'll take it from there. So they're legal. Now, the other thing you may well run into is that many of the moose that we've collared in District 4 the last 2 years may not have collars on them, but they will have ear tags on them. And we absolutely would love to see those ear tags. And since you're required to bring the entire head out, we're going to see those tags. And that's a legal moose. You can completely, what's going to happen here is if it's a legal cow and it has an ear tag, it's either going to be from the 2020 capture or from 2021. And so anyways, long story short, if it has ear tags, it's legal. You bring that up. It's legal to kill a moose that has a collar, I should say.
But just to clarify, Lee, you would prefer they did not cut the collar, correct? So
yes, do not cut the collar off.
Right.
Yeah, you don't need to do anything because of those 2 circumstances. And I don't want to confuse things, but what I just said about the ear tags, what I mean is that if you shoot a moose and it has ear tags, you're fine. But there may be some antlered bulls from 2020 out there that have ear tags, okay? Because they were captured, and this is confusing for me because I'm middle-aged, but they were captured in 2020 as a male calf, and they survived. Their collars have already fallen off because we designed the study that would happen, but they have their ear tags. That is not a legal moose because it has antlers, okay? But moose that we captured in 2021, this year we captured 70 calves in 2021, and some of those are still out there, and those are male and female calves that those would be it's legal if it's a cow or female calf, but anyways.
The safe bet is make sure you have a legal animal as far as an antlerless animal. If it has a tag or an ear collar in it, don't worry about it. That's great data for our staff.
Yeah, and just leave it on the moose. Yep. Thank you, Kevin. That's it's been a long day.
You guys are doing a great job, and we do have a few questions that have come in. One of the more common questions is in regards to other people within your hunting party. If you have other people with you and they're out hunting and it is, deer, bear, bird season, right? Are they allowed to bring firearms and hunt those other species while you were on your moose hunt?
So yes, I would say yes. So if you got a group of 6 guys going up and the other guys want to do some partridge hunting or whatever the case may be, whatever season's open they're hunting, can they do that? Yes, they can. A lot of times what you'll see is, the permittee and the subpermittee goes out and hunts. They're hunting for moose. The other guys are out and around looking to see if they see any moose anywhere to let the original permittee and subpermittee know, can they shoot a partridge if they see it? Yes, or something along those lines. What I would strongly discourage is, if you're trying to go in and get a moose, you probably don't need 4 guys there with rifles all at once. But if you're out and about, nothing prohibits them from hunting legal species, but they are not allowed to participate on your act and actually hunt moose with you. There's only 2 people that can legally hunt that moose. That's the permittee and the subpermittee.
And this is a good time to remind everybody to make sure you're reviewing those law summaries. Make sure you're reviewing any of the materials you may have gotten in your hunter safety course. There are some questions coming in about things to do with, loaded firearms in your vehicle. These are covered within the hunter safety course as well. And there are questions in relationship to this. People are wondering, well, can I hunt from a road? What are the rules about hunting from a vehicle? So I don't know if Kevin, if for just a second, you could just kind of just remind people about those safety things and what they're allowed or not to do with their vehicle and hunting from the road.
Sure. As far as hunting from the road goes, you can't shoot on, across, or discharge within 10 feet of basically a paved way. Okay. So I really don't think you're going to find many blacktop roads in 4A. So you're good there. So legally, if you're on this dead end road and there's a moose that comes out and steps out in the middle of this dirt road, can you, get out, shoot the moose legally? Yes, you can. Cautions would be no other cautions than the same as in the woods, right? Make sure you know your target, make sure you know what's behind it. If you're shooting down a long road, you want to make sure nobody else is down that road walking, looking for moose. Another reason why we require hunter orange, right? So that person hopefully would stand out. But to actually stand on a dirt road and shoot a moose in the dirt road, as long as it's not within 100 yards of a camp or something like that, that would prohibit a discharge, you are allowed to shoot on a dirt road. And what was the other question?
They were just wondering about like shooting from a vehicle, or someone also was talking about loaded firearms in a vehicle. Okay,
so you're not allowed to have a loaded rifle, shotgun in a vehicle. The state of Maine does allow people over the age of 21, some exceptions with military service for under the age of 21, but basically anyone over the age of 21 who is not prohibited from possessing of a firearm, whether for criminal convictions or domestic violence charges along those ways, somebody that wasn't allowed to have a gun in the first place, can have a loaded handgun, which would be like a pistol or revolver, inside a motor vehicle. If stopped, if you're on a traffic, so you get pulled over by a police officer or you're pulled over at some point, you're supposed to notify them that the firearm's in the vehicle, but you are allowed to have that in there. That is not the same with rifles, shotguns, long guns, for lack of a better term. So those cannot be loaded inside a motor vehicle. To include, if you have, let's say, a semi-auto rifle and you have, or even a bolt action rifle, and the magazine is loaded and it's inserted in the firearm, but there's no cartridge inside the chamber, that's still considered loaded. So that's not legal. If you have your rifle in the truck and a loaded magazine outside of the gun, you're fine there. So, you get out of the truck and you put that magazine in, you can load up. Nothing says you can't have the magazine loaded. You just can't have it loaded and inserted in the firearm. So last few years, there have been some changes to the loaded gun thing as far as motor vehicles go. Some of them apply to ATVs. You're not going to be allowed to bring an ATV into the North Main Woods, so we won't address those here in this case. But it does say that while hunting, you can lean or rest on your motor vehicle and to discharge the weapon if the vehicle is not in motion and the engine is off, and you cannot be inside the vehicle. So if you were to stop and swing your door open and say, get out and stand with your feet on the ground, but you had rolled the window down, could you lean down on that to give you an extra support to steady your shot? That would be legal. If the truck is not moving, which hopefully you're not running alongside your truck, the engine needs to be turned off and you need to be outside the vehicle. So you can't sit inside you can't sit inside the truck compartment and shoot out the window. But if you got out and opened that door, could you lean it on the window of the door? Most certainly. If you could go out and lean it across the hood of the truck, or whatever to stable your shot, that would be legal. Again, as long as it's not moving, the vehicle's off, and you're not inside the vehicle. Otherwise, any firearm that's touching that motor vehicle, you have to be in control of. So you can rest your gun on the hood of the truck with it loaded while you have control over it and you're using to steady your aim to shoot at an animal, but you can't leave that loaded firearm unattended, just leaning on top of the hood of the truck. And the reason being is that can slide off and cause an accidental discharge, right? So it really is a safety concern. There are certain situations like we just discussed where you can use your vehicle as a rest for your firearm, but you just can't leave a loaded firearm unattended, not under your control, on the vehicle, and it cannot be inside the vehicle when we're speaking to long guns.
That's great. Thank you for the clarification. Did you have something to add, Lee?
Well,
no?
Laura, I was just going to say, I was just scanning through our adaptive hunt packet, and we have a lot more details about all these things that are in there, including some of these enforcement issues. I was also going to make the comment, because somebody asked me here, is that during that November hunt week, if somebody in the hunting party was out there and shot a deer, would we register that deer at one of our check stations? And I said, yeah, I think there's going to be so few that happens to, but because we have the capability at one of those stations, it all depends on how busy it is, but I don't see us refusing to legally tag an animal there if we can. Although one issue I just thought of while I just said that is
tags.
Whether we're going to have the actual tags for that. So now I'm going to have to contradict myself and say we won't be able to do that. But maybe Laura, I can look into that for that November season, and whether we might have a handful of tags that we could keep with us if need be. But
so they are separate tags. So great.
They are separate tags. Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing, and while we're talking about the check stations there, I just want to remind everybody, if you've had a moose hunt in the past, you've known there's different tagging stations around. The 4 that Lee mentioned are the only tagging stations you can register your moose at. So keep that in mind before you load up and head out of town, and then try to stop in Millinocket and find out you can't, or Lincoln or something and find out you can't register your moose.
Yeah, and I mean, they're all strategically located in our minds as to the 99% the way that people are going to have to leave the woods. They're going to have to go by these. That thoroughfare one is not directly on that main road coming out, but it's just a little poke away. The same with 20 Mile Northern Road. It's not far out of the way to get to that at all.
On that note, some people are worried or wondering what's going to happen if you get out of the woods and the check station is closed. Are the hours accommodating? Is there a way that they can make that work, because they're going to want to head out with their moose?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Kevin.
If I may, Lee, I think they'll be as accommodating as possible, but obviously communication is going to be an issue there. They won't have someone at those stations 24/7. if that's where the station is and, those are the hours are open, if they can help you out, I think they most certainly will. But you need to plan around that too. If you've got a moose and it's down and it's warm, get the hide off it, get it cooling down, and know that you can't get there till 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm sure somebody will be there a couple minutes before 8. I'm sure if you got word out, hey, I got a moose down, and you get somebody to that tagging station beforehand and see if, I'm sure the staff will be willing to work with you and try to help you out. And, hey, we got a moose down. It's going to take us a couple hours to get it out. Is there anybody that can stay around? And you can work that out by a case basis, but know that 8 to 6 is the hours you're going to have to plan on. So
Yeah, and
make sure you're prepared to take care of the moose in the meantime.
yeah, and 3 out of those 4 stations, the staff that are going to be there are staying there
Oh, okay, good.
overnight, but that doesn't mean, the staff are going to be, wanting to wake up at 10 or 11 or 12 or 1 in the morning, every night to check people's moose. So, I mean, it's like you said, Kevin, I mean, people got to be reasonable. I mean, you shoot a moose late in the day, and, if it's warm out, you're working that thing up. I mean, you're kind of overnighting it anyways and packing it out in the morning.
Right.
I don't know if it's really reasonable to do that in the middle of the night, and then, and like you said, it's remote, so there's no way you're going to call somebody to say, hey, here we are.
Right.
No, this is good information. Just a reminder to people, like, now is the time, to review information, learn, plan, and figure out what you're going to do when you get your moose and when as your check station opens. So make sure you're planning that ahead. There's also been a lot of questions in regards to camping up in the North Main Woods, and I did put the link in the chat. There is a lot of information on the North Main Woods webpage about what you can and can't do, about campsites, as well as this information that we provided here tonight and that you can find. But some of the different questions are, do you have to utilize actual camping sites, or can you park off the road or hike into an area and just camp someplace that you find if you can't find a campsite?
Yeah, I mean, really, I might have to defer to North Main Woods a little bit on that, but really, we're highly encouraging people to camp at all of the sites that have been designated for this hunt. And they worked really hard on increasing the number of sites out there in the unit. And I believe that's where they got to be camping.
So I would agree with you, Lee, defer to the North Main Woods. I'd ask them at the check station. I know they do not allow camping at unauthorized sites. So if you plan on walking back in the woods, 3/4 of a mile to a mile and setting a tent, they do not allow that.
No.
I do know they've gone out of their way, and speaking with Lee, the landowners have been really accommodating for this hunt. They have made a bunch of new campsites specifically for this hunt. Some of them may have an outhouse, some of them may not. But that's where you're going to have to keep your camping restricted to, not at the end of a road somewhere where there's not a campsite, or 300 yards on the other side of a clear cut just because it's a good spot. They do not want you camping.
Yeah,
there.
and
it's my understanding.
Yeah, and talking with those guys, they've done a ton of work on this. But at the end of the day, if there's a like a little quarry or something pulled out that's not marked, and there's just no other place for people to camp, and that looks like a legit flat spot, that's going to be okay. I know that we have discussions about that, but like Kevin said, I wouldn't be going off into the woods and making a campsite. But so everything's going to be off of a road.
Well, that's good to know. We definitely want to be respectful of all that they've done to help out with this and all the work that they've done. And so just to reiterate, people are still asking about a map of these campsites. Is that kind of thing available to people?
Yeah, so if you go on, and I think I'm just checking here, but we should have links to the North Main Woods website. And there's a whole section on there where they've marked out using coordinates, and I think there's a map as well. I just haven't looked at this for a long time, and I should have looked at that tonight. But yes, I mean, the answer to that question is that we have a link to it, and it's going to show you, a ton of different options for some of these temporary campsites.
Excellent. Let's see, we do have a few other questions here. So talking about the moose hunt. So you mentioned about calling for moose is not as effective, but is it allowed?
Yeah,
I was gonna say, yeah, it's legal. You can call. Generally, calling of moose so is done to you're imitating a female who's looking to breed and draw a male moose in, or you're imitating a male moose challenging another male moose. I can't say, I can't guarantee you it wouldn't be effective, but it's not nearly as effective on antlerless moose as it is bull moose. But there's nothing that would prohibit you from calling if you wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly communications between cows and calves, and it's not something if you're that people who hunt moose perhaps talk about or highlight because calling moose is always associated with a bull hunt, but it's not within the realm it's not outside the realm of possibility that if you know enough about moose and know enough about cow and calves that maybe some kind of cow call or calf call when you visually get. If you got a visual on one of these things, might be able to draw them in closer. Stranger things have happened.
All right, so this is good. We're good down to just a few more questions. And I do want to remind people, I've put the link in the chat a couple of times, that this form, this evaluation that we're asking you to fill out, the permittees are the ones that need to fill out this form in order to get your permit later. So please make sure to click the link and fill this form out. That's also how we know you attended. I know some of you were saying, giving your name, your shout out when you started, but that's not how we're going to know you attended. Filling out this form is how we're going to know that you watched and attended. So please make sure, and I'll pop that in the chat again in just a minute. There is a little bit more confusion still around antlerless moose hunting. So some people are just wondering, what are these rules around the antlerless moose hunting? Like, what if I shot a bull that has lost its antlers early? They said they have seen this happen before.
So I would say the most simple way to put that is it's an antlerless moose hunt, which means simply you can kill a moose that has 0 antlers on it. Okay, so 0 antlers. Don't get confused with all the bog down on everything else. 0 antlers. If for some strange reason a bull moose has lost its antlers and you cannot see those pedestals and you shoot it, it was an antlerless moose. Do not go and remove those antlers. We'll be able to tell that, right? To try to make it an antlerless moose. But I will agree. I've found moose that have dropped their antlers in mid-November. It's a rarity. I wouldn't worry about that too much. This is an antlerless moose hunt. If it has no antlers and it's in the zone you're allowed, it would be considered legal.
All right, thank you. So we're just coming up on the end here. And if you are interested in learning more about winter tick in moose and how it affects them, we have several different discussions that we've done throughout the spring that you can go ahead and watch those. And I'm sure they'll answer most of your questions that you might have about winter tick. So please make sure you check those out on our YouTube channel as well. Lee has about, I think, three more of those out there that you can watch.
Laura, and I would recommend on that channel, like I said, Dave Hintosh and Lee made some phenomenal videos on both quartering moose, gutting moose, and finding the ovaries. Watch them a few times. They're very educational. Pick up some stuff. You can save some meat for your moose, keep it in good quality, and be able to find your ovaries easier. And kudos to you, Lee and Dave, for getting them done. Very good.
Dave had some questions. I'll just try to make a quick comment about the ovary thing. But we saw that Dave's video on the ovaries didn't show a lot of detail because something was cut out. We've been trying to find kind of the extended version. The bottom line is that if somebody is going to do a traditional gutting method, it's just one of those things where you take your time, and if you make the incision, well, either way you make the incision, if you kind of hold everything, meaning all of the guts and everything in the moose's cavity, and you go down to the bottom of right where the pelvic girdle, where the pelvis is. So you've made a cut all the way down to where that pelvis is. That's right the spot that if you were looking in, if you're looking at the moose and the head is to the north and the pelvis is to the south, and I've made that incision, I'm looking down right in there to find the uterus. And you may, especially if there's any gas forming in the lower intestines there, you may have to just push those aside. But that's the first start to look for that uterus and be able to grab that with your hand and pull it up and to find the ovaries. And you'll see in the hunt packet that we have a series of photos that shows this whole entire gut pile, and I think a close up of my hands holding a uterus. So you can actually gut out the moose and then find the ovaries. But what happens, what people do, is they wind up cutting through the uterus or part of the uterus where the ovaries are. And then because the tissue is so elastic, the tissues are so elastic, they can kind of snap back, and then people have a lot of trouble trying to find both ovaries. So you just gotta be patient with it and take it slow, because once you do it and you cut them out, you're done, and you can just go through the rest of your process. So anyways, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll put a couple of those video links in. They are really good and fun videos to watch. So if you just go right on to our YouTube channel where you are watching right now, you can look up field dressing a moose, and there's 3 different ones, and there are really great videos, and please make sure you check those out. Another note, since we are getting a lot of questions, this is not a quiz that you need to finish. This is an evaluation. Don't worry about how many you got wrong or right. You review the information in the packet, review the information in this video to know you have the understanding for your hunt. But as far as the form goes, it's an evaluation to help us understand that you've been here and you're listening and watching. So a fun question that has come in, and it was actually one that came in early, but I thought I'd save it for the end, is, do you know how to moose call?
You're asking us?
Yeah, not me. I don't know how to moose call. Sorry.
Know how? Yep. A bull cow and a cow call.
I guess they probably more want to know if you are able to demonstrate it. Are you able to are you able to right now, or is it do you need supplies? Like, we can't do it right now.
Well,
No,
maybe for another day. It's been a long day.
That comes down to a matter of not ego, but self-consciousness, right?
How much you want to embarrass yourself.
Right, exactly. So,
as a moose biologist or as a game warden, you're going to be judged on the quality of your bull or cow call.
So what I can say is I can successfully call moose in. Is it the prettiest and will it win an award? No, but
Well, and seriously, while we're talking about that, I mean, anybody these days who has access to the internet and looks at our website and does any kind of Googling for calling in a bull or calling a moose, you're going to find a ton of videos from people with different angles, and you can be up all night doing this. And who knows? I haven't seen it, but maybe there's a video out there and advice on how to call a cow. I haven't seen that, but maybe that's a thing. So people are obviously free to explore all those types of things. There's all kinds of information obviously out there on the web.
And moose calls are legal in the state of Maine. Again, we talked about maybe the effectiveness during a cow hunt, but if you're on a bull hunt or you want to try them, they are legal to use in the Maine. So don't feel like you have to generate them all by yourself, and call with your boys.
All right, so I think we're just about there. I think we've got most of the questions. And again, a reminder to people, if you're having a lot of questions about camping in the North Maine woods, there is that website for the North Maine woods. They have a lot of information on there about what you can and can't do, where camping is allowed. So please make sure you check that out. You can also find those links and more information on our webpage if you go to mefishwildlife.com/adaptive-unit-hunt. And I'll put that in the chat as well. So a lot of great information out there. And no, subpermittees do not have to fill out the form that we're putting in the link. The permittees do. So we're asking that everyone fills this out right away, so we don't have to chase you down and make sure you filled out the form. But please make sure if you're a permittee and you're watching, fill out this form so we know that you have watched and you will be all set for that permit to come out. And the permits come out about 2 weeks before your hunt. So you're not going to get it right away just because you took this form. It will come out about 2 weeks before your hunt. So that looks like we've covered most of the questions, and I'm going to assume that a tractor going into the North Main Woods is the same as an ATV for the rules. That was a question as well.
I believe it would be, but they could call a North Main Woods office and find that out. I know they, to my understanding, and again, double check with them, they're the landowners, but to my understanding, ATVs are definitely not allowed. I don't believe mountain bikes are allowed, so that would probably include your e-bikes, or my guess is a tractor, but I don't know. I'd double check with the landowner, which would just contact the North Main Woods gate.
Yeah, and I think with the link to the North Main Woods website as well, is that you could also call them with questions about camping and campsites and the differences. We have a lot of that in the adaptive hunt packet, but I think people will find a lot of information there at North Main Woods Inc. as well regarding camping. And also limitations on, what you can and cannot bring into the North Main Woods. So I think it's pretty thorough what they have.
All right, well, I think that brings us to the end of the briefing. I haven't seen any new questions. Again, you do not get a confirmation about the form. This is a form evaluation that helps us understand that you were here and what information was understood. So don't worry about that. And please make sure you fill that out. Review the information that you were given in that brochure and that packet that came out. Similar and more information can be found online. More information about how to quarter your moose is on our YouTube channel. You can rewatch this video anytime, pause it, take notes if you need, if that helps you. And as always, you can call us or send us messages. You send us an email through our website. You can call us at the 287-8000 number or contact us on social media if you feel like you still have more questions after tonight. And yes, it is a 9-question form. Someone just asked that. It is 9 questions. So thank you, Lee, and thank you, Kevin. This is really informative. A lot of people were definitely thankful for this. So thank you guys for taking your time to do this.
Just want to wish everybody good luck. Enjoy some good moose meat.
Yeah, congratulations. And I'll say the same thing as Kevin and also reiterate that I know this might seem like a lot to people, but let's just not lose sight of the fact that this is still, it's a Maine moose hunt. And it's in a beautiful part of the state. It's remote, and we want people to enjoy it. It's just got a little bit of a different flavor to it with these type of things. But I think you'll find out that everything's going to be all right, and hopefully the weather will be on our side.
So good luck, everybody, on your moose hunt. Make sure you fill out that form, and feel free to reach out to us if you have more questions. Have a good evening, everybody.